You can see I'm set up for business here. Can't even reach anything. So I'm going to get the thick stuff out, and I'm going to just dab a bit of this onto the frets. It usually goes anywhere but on the frets. It's going to spit it everywhere as well, so it's a bit of a messy all round thing, but as long as I get some on the metal, that'll be good. Try not to overload it because it really will splatter off in some direction. So I started off with some on there. You could do this by hand, but I'm just going to do it faster, and I say you'll see bits of cotton spinning everywhere. So I do it on the first setting. I said the first setting. Okay, it doesn't seem to want to do first setting. Okay, so I can see it spraying off sideways. But it shines the frets up very nicely. I think in a way this is probably as much cosmetic as anything else. This gets in the final shine. There is a bit of abrasive in this stuff, so it does take some a final layer of metal. But it is spraying, because I've used quite a bit of the stuff, it is spraying quite a bit. So you have to be prepared to clean up afterwards. Put your hand there and try and stop the majority of it going anywhere. And it's a very satisfying part of it, because we've spent quite a bit of time working on this, and you know, when we finish this off, it's going to be the grand reveal and take off the paper, which again takes quite a while and sometimes leaves a bit of sticky goo. So you've got to be quite patient with this. There's no quick fix. But when it's done, you know, you'll have a reconditioned frets, and you'll benefit it, because you'll be able to play clean notes all the way up the neck, and it will also give you opportunity to lower your action if it so suits you. You know, that's partly why we do the fret leveling, to give you some more room to take your action down. And sometimes what you'll find is a guitar, if you buy a guitar and its action seems really high, very often the action will be set high to mask the fact that there are fret problems. And that's one way of making them invisible for when you sell it, is to set the action really high. It's when the action gets lower that the uneven heights of the frets really start to show themselves, and they reveal themselves as a kind of choking, buzzing, usually as a buzzing first, but then as they're really bad, then the high fret chokes off the note in front of it. So you end up with a kind of strange thing where you play a note and move your finger up and down a couple of frets, and it plays the same note each time. And if you get that, then you know that the fret's way too high and action needs to be taken. Or if you can't do this whole business of fret leveling, then the action you may have to take is raising the action of the strings at the bridge, and that's one way of making it at least playable for the time being. Okay, now I've done that, splattered a good pile of goo everywhere, so I'm going to sort of just wipe the main chunk of it off. So you can see at the end of that process we've got a very dirty looking pile of rubbish there, but what we've got is a level set of frets, which when we take all this paper off the back will pay us back by playing really well. Now again, when you come to this bit, don't be tempted, whatever you do, to use a knife. If you've got fingernails like I have, good for you, but either which way, do not use a knife. Use your fingernails even if you have to sort of scrape for ages. A knife, you'll just end up cutting the lacquer on the neck and you'll regret it. There's no quick way of doing this. Even if you have to kind of rip across the masking tape to get a bite at it, just take your time, persevere. It will take a while, but you only have to do this once. And if you get it, you kind of botch the job with by taking a knife to it, you will be sorry. Now there are some situations where you won't find the join. You just need to be persevere and dig in. It will also probably leave some sticky tape behind on the neck, so be prepared to do some work to wipe that off with sort of regular polish, I think would do. But you'll have some masking tape sticky goo left over, almost inevitable. So the funny thing is about doing this is, in many ways, doing this, getting the frets exactly the right level, and what we're going to do afterwards, which is to restring it, set the action, and then intonate the guitar, which was pretty good before, but we'll do it again once we've checked the action that we want. In a way, some of these jobs should be done at the point of sale, but of course in the mass-produced guitar era, they're not. You buy them mail order or online, and you get them in a box, and the box comes straight from the factory, and as long as it all works and everything's sort of set up, basically ready to go, nobody pays that much attention to it. And it's because the setup and the action of the guitar is personal, it's not something you could really set up for everybody anyway. But again, as I said before, the real problem is that most people by default buying these kinds of guitars are newcomers to guitar playing, and so they don't know that there is this thing called setting it up the way it suits you, so you can enjoy. I think the biggest, I think I read somewhere recently, and it struck me as totally true, and I hadn't thought of it before, but the biggest downside of a badly set up guitar is the effect it has on the confidence of the learner. And I really hadn't thought this through, but it's so true. When I picked up Squier Strat #1, and I did all the work to do the setup, got everything what I thought was nice, and then I just played it, and it just wouldn't play. It played horribly. And of course, I began to think it was me, thinking I just couldn't, something wrong, I'm doing something wrong. And of course, it took me to diagnose it and go on a detective hunt to work out what was wrong. I couldn't let it defeat me, so I was very determined to work it out, which I did in the end. But for a guitar that was as unplayable as that, if that had been, well, I can imagine the young girl who I bought it from, I can imagine her trying to play that and just thinking she was just making awful noises, because it must be because she was a novice or she was new, and so therefore the fact that it sounded lousy was probably her fault. And I think it's really sad that it's all too easy for that to be the case, when in fact I've been playing for quite a few years, and I know what I'm doing setting things up like this, and even still that guitar sounded absolutely vile when I was trying to play it. So and it made me want to chuck it away. I was on the verge of giving up with it, which I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't, because I worked out what the problem was. Okay, so after all of that, you probably hardly, certainly with this camera, you'll barely see the difference this makes. And I'm going to stop the video for a minute because I've got some other things to do. But we have some beautifully shiny frets going on there. Hope you can see them. And those should be all beautifully leveled, ready for us to put on some new strings. I'll chuck some polish on the back here as well, just to take off the sticky tape if I can. Yeah, so we'll come back with this a bit later on, and we'll do the stringing and the setting the action, and then finally the intonation and then a test. And as I say, this purpose of all of this is show you stuff that you can do to make your guitar play like a much more expensive piece of kit than the maybe 50 or 60 quid that you might have paid for it. Obviously you might have to pay a bit more for this one because I've done all the work on it for you, but in the future you'll be able to do it yourself. So I'll see you a bit later on.